Okay, so there are a few things to finish up about stealing and handling property, and then we'll go back to the 41 prayers of bodhisattvas until I come up with some other thing too. Okay, so the other things about property is when there's been an offering made, or even people living in a community, people living in a family, to not take more than one's own share. Yeah, because sometimes there's food there, and then before anybody else can get it, one person comes and it's all gone. Or sometimes, like I was saying, in the Tibetan monasteries, they pass out money donations, and so you kind of, sometimes they forget in a big crowd where they were, and somebody will hand you another one, but you don't accept it, you give it back. Okay, we don't give out the money donations here, it's too confusing. But that may happen to you when you're in a Tibetan audience, so we don't take more than our share. Sometimes it happens that somebody else may take their share and give it to us, because I know sometimes I've been at His Holiness's teachings on there was one Theravada monk who doesn't accept money, so he gave it to me for the abbey. So then you can accept it, because it was from somebody else. It wasn't taking more than your own fair share. Okay, so to be mindful about that. Then the second thing is when you decide to give something to somebody mentally, if you then change your mind and don't give it, it's a form of taking what's not yours. Okay? Because as soon as you make a firm decision to give it mentally, even though it hasn't left your hands, does belong to the other person, because you made that firm decision. So in that way then, when we decide to give something, we should try and follow it through. Now, sometimes it may happen that something happens and there's no way we can do that. Then we should inform the other people and say, I wanted to give this and now I don't have it myself, and just so it's completely clear, in that way. And then the other thing was sometimes we give something and then we decide we want it back. So this is the same thing, like you decide to give it and then you change your mind, you don't. This time you only got further. You gave it and then you decide you want it back, but you didn't want to give it. And so in that way we can't just go and take it back because we gave it. It's not ours. And we can't go and demand to the other person, this is mine, you give it back to me, because we gave it to them. But if something happens and we feel like we still need it, I think it's as in the previous case, then we go and we explain the issue, and we humbly ask for them to return it to us. And if they say yes, fine, and if they say no, then that's the end of it, and don't hold anything in our mind. Because we may have given something to somebody, and then they may have used it up, they may have given it to somebody else, who knows what could have happened. And so we shouldn't then demand that the other person pay us back for it or replace it, because we did give it. Okay, so these things revolve very much about being very clear in our own mind about ownership, and when we give something and when we don't, when it belongs to us and when it doesn't. Okay, and so because people tend to often be murky about this, that's why I've always said regarding the donations that we don't count them until they're here. And just like we always have the slogan that you don't know somebody's going to move here till you see the whites of their eyes. Because people aren't so aware of this kind of thing, and their mind changes all the time. And then also things come up where sometimes, they thought they were going to be able to do something and then they can't. Yeah. So from our side, we don't cling on to anything that hasn't been received. Okay? As a community, and I think it's wise to do that as an individual, because then if somebody else, says, oh, I'm going to give you this, if we don't count on it, then if something comes up and the other person can't give it, it's not severe karma on their part, because mentally we haven't taken ownership of it. Okay? So in the same way they say that, like, let's say somebody comes and steals things from you, okay, and then you think, okay, that person stole, I want to make it easier for them, so I relinquish ownership of it, but then later you see the person that has it, and you go up to them and say, give it back to me, this is mine, or you chase them and snatch it away. So I was reading the Chinese fiction, and used to say, that's how a thief steals from a thief. Okay, because you've given up ownership, the other person's taken ownership, but then you actually haven't given up ownership because you see it again and you decide you want it back. So if somebody has stolen something from you and you want to ease their karma by giving up ownership, really think well, and you've got to really, it's not mine any longer. So that then if you see the other person using it or wearing it or whatever, nothing in your mind. Yeah. On the other hand, if somebody steals something from you and the authorities recover it, then you can accept it back. Yeah. Or if the thief has mentally not taken ownership of it, if they know that they've stolen and they haven't completed the act by thinking, oh, now it's really mine, then at that point too you can also take it back. Okay. So it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because very often we're not so clear in our own mind about when we give things, when we receive things, who they belong to, yeah, what we expect of other people to, return it, or, so it's good to try and be more aware of these things. Yeah, you have a question?
I think I was reading in a proofreading about if a thief gives a Buddhist monk something, they should take it.
Yeah.
It's so odd.
Yes, because actually in the Bodhisattva vows, yeah, your question was, you read something that if a thief gives a Buddhist monk something that was stolen, you should accept it. Actually in the Bodhisattva vows, you're not allowed to accept stolen property. And maybe the idea behind this is, if let's say a Buddhist statue or something like that has been stolen, if a thief gives it to you, you take it so that you can return it to its proper owner. Yeah, but no, especially the law of our land is, if you accept stolen property and you know it's stolen, it's against the law of the land, so we should not do that. Yeah.